Hare Krishna. I'm looking at the computer here. I have a lengthy question from Braja-sevaki, who's citing Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, who's saying how the way in which Vaishnavas deal with death of a Vaishnava, the departure of a Vaishnava, that really fulfills all the requirements of the grieving process. And she then refers to the current situation with Bhakti Caru Swami Maharaj, where right from the outset, devotees were so cut off from being with him, so restricted in what they can do, not only in terms of being with him at the time of departure, but how to then deal with his body thereafter, and even placing him in Samadhi in Mayapur was, from what I understand, a very restricted affair. So the question then comes up that with a wonderful devotee who is so dear to everybody, like Bhakti Caru Maharaj, how do devotees fulfill this grieving process? Doesn't this leave a lot of grief and emotion, unworked off emotion within a devotee, which then obviously can be the cause of stress and other things. And of course that goes especially so for disciples. And the answer certainly is yes. I believe that you will never be able to completely fulfill the grieving process for Bhakti Caru Swami Maharaj. Our situation with Srila Prabhupada was our situation, my situation being in Chicago, 10,000 kilometers away, or more, 10,000 miles away, was somewhat similar. But there were devotees there. We were getting, as limited as communication was at that time, we were getting information as to what was transpiring. And for me, the most helpful thing was Yaduvar Prabhu's film, this final lesson film. That really helped me to work off, to a certain degree, to a good extent, Srila Prabhupada's demise, and allowed me to grieve. It took quite some years before I was actually willing to watch the video. Now I do so. Prabhupada's departure every year, I watch it, and it helps me to deal with the ongoing feeling of loss that's there. And that's why I said that I don't think that anyone can ever fully grieve enough to actually satisfy that sense of loss, but enough to be able to manage it and not be sort of harmful or detrimental. In that film, you can see that, and of course, there were devotees with Srila Prabhupada for months leading up to his departure. He invited devotees. Unfortunately, we weren't allowed to take advantage of Prabhupada's invitation to be with him. At the time of Prabhupada leaving his body, he was surrounded by disciples. Then, throughout the whole night, Prabhupada left his body at 8 p.m. and throughout the rest of the night, devotees offered worship, parikrama, chanted Hare Krishna, cried. And crying is very important to be able to release that energy. And thereafter, they took Srila Prabhupada's body on parikrama of 7 temples of Vrindavan, and then everyone was able to participate and see, placing Prabhupada in Samadhi, contributing to the earth that went in there. It was certainly really participative for those who were there. And when I now see that film, it allows me to participate in a way that I find very helpful. And thereafter, devotees did parikrama of Govardhan Hill the next day. They took Srila Prabhupada's deity, they worshipped and installed it at Radhakund. So these things are not just rituals, but they help in order to allow devotees to express their feelings of sorrow, departure, and it systematically invokes and brings out feelings and also brings a sense of pacifying or nurturing. So for me, that very tasteful film, and I found it very much in good taste, that very, very tasteful film is very helpful, a final lesson. I use this word tasteful because I know, for instance, I was present throughout everything except his actual accident for Tamal Krishna Swami Maharaj, both at the hospital and seeing him and taking him back to Mayapur and all the ceremonies that followed thereafter up until he was placed in Samadhi. But something was very untasteful, and that was when we brought his body out of the bus and into the bottom of the conch building where they were already waiting to perform bathing of him and getting him ready to be able to take him out in public to devotees, put him in front of Radha Madhav. All devotees were able to come take darshan and offer Puspanjali. Very very good, nurturing. And but when we brought him out, then devotees were just there taking pictures, as if there's some real value in taking pictures of a deceased body. Jayadvaita Maharaj was there with us. He got so angry that he grabbed the camera out of one devotee's hand. I thought he was going to throw it on the ground. And he was just shouting at this devotee. He says, "Why are you doing this? Just take this crazy thing away." I had a very similar experience. It seems like there was a video of disciples in the hospital after Bhakti Caru Maharaj had left. And Shambhi Hari was telling me this, I didn't see it, but he came to me very disturbed because he saw that Bhakti Caru Maharaj was laying on the bed, and there was a disciple or disciples taking selfies with them beside him. That's really out of taste. I would possibly say it's more than out of taste. No doubt devotees want to be able to remember their spiritual master, but there's ways of doing things and how to actually properly conduct ourselves. So, now we have a similar situation with Bhakti Caru Swami Maharaj, a much loved devotee, who, what to speak of being present with him while he was in an ailing condition. Devotees weren't to be able to be present with him when he leaves his body, have very little control over his body on the way to India. In other words, it's just being freighted there. And then even the Samadhi ceremony, placing him in Samadhi, was my understanding, very much a restricted affair. So how do devotees, the question there is, how do devotees work off the natural sense of loss that's there? How do they grieve? I hope that a nice, tasteful film will be made where devotees will be able to work that off. At least that was my experience. No doubt devotees have had vigils, 24-hour vigils, kirtan, offerings of food to Vaishnavas on behalf of Bhakti Caru Swami Maharaj, remembrances. These are all part and parcel of that process. And I hope, especially for disciples, that they cried, because that's Krishna's way of helping us overcome grief and give relief to grief by crying. Jayanilo Primadana Karuna Prachu. So he says, I just cry. So we should, these things we should do. I know that I've been in India, particularly being in villages, I've seen this transpire on several occasions when someone dies in the family and ladies dress in black and they go about from house to house wailing, not just crying quietly, but wailing. And they do that for 7 days. And it's therapeutic. It helps you get over that loss. I don't say you get over it. I said it helps you get over it. I'm here after 40 years of Srila Prabhupada's disappearance. I haven't gotten over it, and never will. It will never be the same. But still, and of course I return to the most important aspect of Srila Prabhupada's instruction in this regard, is that coming even closer to the vani of the spiritual master helps compensate for the absence of his physical presence and helps us actually to deal with this loss, which ultimately, when grieving is not properly dealt with, then it brings about certain frustration and inner conflict, emotional conflict. It's not it's not an easy situation. Our movement is, in one sense, destined for this because of the nature of the guru-disciple relationship. We have disciples all over the world of a guru. Will they ever be able to fully participate in all of the things that help with the grieving process? Highly unlikely. They will have to compensate by doing the alternate means that devotees do. But no doubt, Yoga Kshema Bahamyaham, Krishna will help them from within, and by real adherence to the instructions of spiritual master, they will learn how to live with the loss, because ultimately that's what we all have to do. Hare Krishna.